Hi everybody. Now this session will be your session for Hive versus MapReduce. So let's see. First of all, writing a MapReduce code. So while you're writing a MapReduce code, what procedure do we follow? So first of all, we have to implement the mapper and the reducer function. We implement the mapper and the reducer function. Then these functions are written in the driver class from where the program invokes. After this, it is packaged. We package the code as a jar executable file because it is through the jar file we can make the processing of the data or analysis of the data work. Then the loading of the input files is done in HDFS. Then we write a command that is Hadoop jar. We give the jar file name that we packaged, the input directory and the output directory where we want our result to come out. Then we have the client will submit the job to the tracker, the job tracker, and monitor the result. So this is the procedure that is followed when we consider for writing the MapReduce code. Coming on to, is Hive better than MapReduce? Now, we'll check the performance of Hive versus the MapReduce performance. So, if we write the number of lines and if we consider the number of lines of code, LOC, for MapReduce and we compare it with the lines of code for Hive, it is 1/20th. That is, if we are using MapReduce and we are going for MapReduce, we are writing 180 lines of code, only 10 to 15 lines of code for the same procedure, or if we have to analyze the same data and for the same thing, we just have to write 10 to 15 lines of code in Hive. So the lines of code are reduced to 1/20th in case of Hive. The second case is the development time. The time for writing the code, packaging the jar file and whole procedure, it is 1/16th in case of Hive when we compare it with MapReduce. So if we are taking 240 minutes for writing a code in MapReduce to analyze and process our data, it would be 1/16th. It would take 15 to 20 minutes. Approximately the time between 15 to 20 minutes would be taken in order to do the same thing in Hive. So certainly this shows that these are the cases or these are the scenarios where Hive stands better than MapReduce. Now, why Hive when we already have MapReduce? So, Hive is an SQL-ish-like language, whereas MapReduce is not an SQL-ish-like language. So, people or the programmers are more, you can say, they're more comfortable using the SQL language. They are more they know more SQL, they are more familiar with SQL and find it comfortable to use SQL. So this is the first reason. We write more than 100 lines of code to implement a simple word count application using MapReduce, but it takes only like half dozen lines of code for writing the same thing in Hive. So it takes very less time to write the Hive query compared to MapReduce code. Okay, so like if we have a word count problem, we might be using like 50 to 100 lines of code maybe in MapReduce, whereas only 5 lines of code in Hive. So you basically save time here. Hive internally runs the generic mapper and the reducer function whenever it requires. So now Hive was developed so that people who have SQL knowledge can write the MapReduce job. It supports the SQL syntax, which means that it is possible to integrate Hive with existing BI tools. So business analytics or the non-Java guys can also work on the large data set using Hive. Similarly, the code which were earlier used in RDBMS can be used in Hive, and with MapReduce, it is separate exercise in itself. Now further, when we consider, there is no requirement of compilation or creation of jar file here. So this is also one of the reasons. It is very easy to write a query involving joins if there are few joins in Hive. Comparing it with MapReduce, you have to do caching of the data and do several operations to reach the same point. Further, it has very low maintenance and it is very simple and easy to learn when we consider Hive. So this is about it. I hope that will be fine.